But there is a silver lining in this. There are women who are questioning this, either vocally or in action.
Welcome back to Witch Hunt Podcast. I'm Josh Hutchinson.
And I'm Sarah Jack.
We're continuing our exploration of contemporary witch hunting practices around the world with our returning guest, Dr. Govind Kelkar.
In an earlier episode that you need to listen to, she shared valuable insights into the experiences of women in India. Today, she's discussing her recent research and fieldwork, examining witch hunts and ritual attacks across 8 northeastern states of India.
Dr. Kelkar's research reveals how patriarchal systems have intensified within these communities, leading to the devaluation of women and perpetuating harmful practices like witch branding.
Her work uncovers surprising connections between economic development, cultural preservation, and gender-based violence.
You'll learn how capitalism has transformed gender dynamics in these regions, about the challenges facing activists working to create safer spaces for women,
And how feminist movements might address witchcraft accusations while respecting indigenous rights and cultural autonomy. It's so good to have you back. Thank you for all that you taught us on your first visit. That conversation was a starting point for us as a podcast to look at India and to start looking at the different experiences happening there. So we really appreciate what you taught us on that episode. And we're so glad to have you here today to talk about your recent book. Can you please introduce yourself and tell us about your recent work?
Well, my name is Govind Kelkar, and last year I completed a study of 8 northeastern states in India. So these states of North India, they are all indigenous peoples. I wanted to look at what is the system of witch hunts and harmful practices like tiger spirits, clan, which is a serpent kind of thing, which is supposed kept in rich person's houses, notional serpent, not real serpent. So this is the study that I did in the 8 states of India. And these 8 states include, let me go by alphabetically, Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, Manipur, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland, Sikkim, Tripura. These are the 8 states. So if you look at the map, then you can find out that they are really in the northeastern part of India. There is a diversity of culture in these states. They are different indigenous people. In India, they are called tribes officially. But I like to call the word indigenous. I don't like the word tribe. And Meghalaya is matrilineal, and the other states are in pockets there have been matrilineal, but otherwise they have shifted to patrilocality. That is one aspect of diversity. Second aspect of diversity is different culture. A lot of them, but lot of them are Christians. So Christianity binds them. Some have, of course, are Hindus, some are the nature worshippers, but majority of them would fall into the category of Christians. They speak different languages. They have different cultural system. However, two things are very common in these states, besides being geographically a kind of located area in the northeast. One is that the conservation of nature, whether it is water, trees, forest in particular, and so they like to conserve. And second is the devaluation of women. Even in matrilineal society of Meghalaya, which we spoke a little bit earlier, that in Meghalaya, it is the land and lineage belongs to women. So that's why I call them the matrilineal society. But decision making is in the hands of men. So there is a patriarchal system within the matrilineal system. So I call it kind of devaluation of women at various layers. So these are the common features. Another common feature is tremendous kind of myths are going around, and they in turn create some adverse aspect of the cultural system. Devaluation of women itself is a kind of cultural aspect in my analysis, and that's why I selected these states.
Thank you. Since we're talking about witch hunting and witch branding, can you refresh our memories on how a witch is defined in northeastern India?
A woman or a man who causes harm to others. But I think 96%, less than 5% are men. So largely it is the women who cause harm to others, harm in the sense of causing illness, causing death, causing bad harvest, causing natural disasters. A woman is considered responsible for her acts during the night or this thing. The capsule definition is which causes harms to the society. And interestingly, they do harm only to their own community, not in general. So if I go there as a kind of non-indigenous, non-community person, then I won't be affected by it. Even a indigenous person from other state or from other tribe is not affected by it. So that causes harm to others within their own community.
Today, we're going to talk about gender, culture, and capital, witch hunts, and ritual attacks across Northeast India. Why was it important to write this right now?
But I have worked for nearly 30 years on the subject of witch hunts. So it started with one state, which is called Jharkhand in the central part of India. Now, I wanted to look, one of the primary objective was to look at the northeastern region of India, which is indigenous. The second is that they are economically better off than the rest of, not the rest of India, but the rest of indigenous states in India, indigenous peoples in India. They are, in terms of whether we call it literacy or education, they are mostly educated. This education has been provided to them by Christian missionaries. They speak, most of them speak not Hindi, which is the considered official language in India or national language of India. So for this region, I wanted to see this kind of cluster of indigenous people, whether they have the witch hunts or not. Because modernity, whether it is the modern, I mean, what by all factors, by economic status, by knowledge in terms of increased knowledge through English language largely, whether they have gained anything and whether the witch practice has, whether it exists there or whether if it exists in what form it exists or it doesn't exist. That is also I wanted to see whether the witch system is part of the societies which are not exposed to modernity. That was my purpose to and study that.
And a lot of this modernity that you wrote about in this important work has to do with the development of capitalist systems. How have those systems helped to introduce this patriarchy into these communities?
I find responsible two factors largely. One is the cultural roots within the indigenous society, for which people are very defensive. Anyway, I come on that later. So, cultural roots, I wanted to see culture and belief system was one thing that I wanted to look at from these states. Second was also, which is you say modernity, whether modernity in terms of these factors, education, economic development, all this, whether patriarchy has decreased or increased. And my analysis was that these cultural roots which were there, they have already, the, the base was there. And patriarchy gave a push, not a push, but a great push in terms of making it a kind of coming in a very bad form, bringing lot of brutality, lot of discrimination, lot of devaluation of women. So which were earlier used to be little bit kind of, there was a but bit of layer. It became a full blown kind of thing.
When did push, this big push happen? What era? How long ago?
I cannot say market forces were not there 50 years ago, but I looked at only the history of the 70 years since the India got free from the colonial rule of the British. And earlier they were very kind of warring tribes in Nagaland, for example. The villages would attack each other in order to take resources, establish their control on people, women and men, and on resources. So this kind of warring factions were there earlier. The British colonial system brought them in the formation of the bigger groups. And then subsequently they were created states and then they became part of the India. So India, it is our almost 70 years, 1947. So I looked at what kind of changes have happened. In the one is the kind of joining the Indian Union, and second is with Indian Union, the education and the other kind of things started happening. They were happening earlier also. The missionaries came a lot during the British colonial period. But the other kind of push in terms of infrastructure, roads, control of militancy, both of among these states, they were fighting against each other, but they were also fighting the Indian control, Indian government control. When I say Indian kind of system, that I mean central government of India. This is how the historically I looked at that. Not periodically so much. Somewhere something developed, somewhere something developed. But I study development in three areas in terms of the infrastructure, roads, electricity, water supply, though limited and uneven, but there is a steady increase. Second steady increase is really in terms of the making part of them, controlling them, including Hinduizing them. Earlier they were Christianized. Now the effort making them as a kind of Hindu, part of the Hindu India. And the main kind of thing, the patriarchal development. Women behave like there is a lot of patriarchy in Hinduism, and there was a Christian version of patriarchy which was introduced earlier. Now another aspect of the patriarchy was introduced, which is based comes from the Hindu scriptures, Hindus, and they call it Hindu civilization. But I don't know when you devalue women, what kind of civilization is that? So that was
Yeah.
also introduced. Yeah.
And what are the implications of these developments and the devaluation of women?
One in terms of implication is that little mobility is affected, women's mobility, going to field, going to still it is so much better than rest of India. There is no parda system. Parda means veiling of the face. That is the or mobility control. So parda system was never there. But now one has to say, oh, it is night time. We will not go. So night time means what? That means that they are likely to be attacked, with the exception of matrilineal Meghalaya, which is a bit different. So that is one implication. Second implication is that control which women had in their hands, they were come and for example in Nagaland, women were the village heads. And when they got married, husband was supposed to help them in administration. But now the husband has become the Nokma, that means the village head, and woman has become a helper. Even his officially his helper would be men, but women are just cooking and cleaning and all this kind of domestic work, domestic duties, rearing of children. So it is the like in rest of India, it happens in the rural India. This is what is being has been introduced. So this is a very serious implication in terms of a steady and full blown patriarchy that is there. Violence against women within the domestic sphere is very much. And also the safety and security in public spaces, lack of that. And I call it as a part of that when you are attacked, you are not attacked by the animal, we are attacked by the human beings. So when safety and security is being talked, that itself shows that women are not safe in terms of walking around. So this is one implication. Second implication is that, which is one better part, that women, young women in particular, after their school education or college education, they are leaving for work outside their region. Delhi, Bombay, other cities, they will be full of in two professions. One is the sales and other is the beautician. and they are good managers. And some are getting a kind of semi-nursing jobs also. Not nurses in the medical system, but in the beauty place, they would be doing the work, helping, I mean, helpers, but with good knowledge. And they are considered very honest working, hard working girls, so they are hired first. And since the middle class get attracted to them because of their ability to handle things, so, and not fool around with the work time, and better manage things. So this is, I don't know, good aspect or bad aspect, but women's mobility outside, women's migration within the country has increased. And they don't want to go back also. And this, I don't know how it is going to lead in another 10 years. These are women who have boyfriends because self-arranged marriage system is there back home. And but they said that he's not doing anything. What's the point of going there? So by and large, young men are staying behind, and they have not taken this advantage of this getting job either within their region or outside the region, while women are doing that. So modernity is malcontents. That is one thing that is a kind malcontents in terms of patriarchy, but mobility is one aspect which is good. These women live together, they feel safer in terms of their own environment because they are working, they have some independence, financial independence. So they are very happy about that. Mm.
So it's creating a new social culture for these women who are able to go do skilled
Precisely.
work.
Yeah, precisely so. It is a new culture. And even when they go during Christmas time, they go for a month or 20 days, 3 weeks to 1 month, no, to 30 days. And in these kind of situations, they take a lot of money, lot of gifts to their families, and also provide some money on a regular basis. So they are supporting their family. So women are in terms of no longer as not as breadwinners, but a kind of participants in the breadwinning situation these young women are entering. Hmm. And probably that's why they are not going for any matrimonial alliance. But strangely, they don't like these men, young people from India. I have not come across anyone who has a boyfriend, young girl, a kind of in the society from North India where I live. And either they have it in back home, which they meet, maybe probably, I assume they meet because I once in a while I ask them from where they are and whether they have the boyfriends or whether they support their family. And they all say they support their family and they have a boyfriend at home, back home. And but nobody is going around with a kind of Indian men. Because they find them probably more mature than their own men.
In these communities in Northeast India, what are the challenges that are being faced by women and activists trying to create safe spaces for women and challenge harmful practices like witch hunting?
Strangely, witch hunting is still seen as part of their cultural systems. That lot of them they believe. So that it is the part of their indigenous culture. And it is not being attacked. Even from women who are outside that region, they also believe that yes, there are witches. And one question that I've been asking on a ad hoc basis, when you are in Delhi, because I live near Delhi, I said, when you are in Delhi, why the witch does not affect you? Do you think any person affected by witch? They said, no, this is not really, this is only in our region. But being this practice of our region is considered as a part of indigeneity. So there is a lot of, when you are fighting for your cultural system against a Indian state which is creating a Hinduization or system, Hinduized system, then you find that to save their system, lot of ills you manage. This is the a kind of diaspora situation that the diasporas I find general more conservative than the back home societies. They have gone somewhere, they have the same cultural system, they are not changing because all their efforts go in conserving their own culture. And I find the same thing in Northeast women who are working here. So the witch system as a challenge is not taken by the women. But there are some journalists, there are some university professors in this region, particularly in Meghalaya and Nagaland and Tripura. There is acceptance that this is not a good practice. This is, they call it part of superstition. They should get rid of this. This is a part of their cultures won't be get affected by this. I mean, they will be culturally strong. They will be more, quote, modern if they get rid of this system. So there is a bit of shyness about talking about this. There is a bit of also resistance to talk about that because they think that you are pinning down on something. As such, they are considered as the, quote again, backward people. And you are, by discussing this, that you are thinking that they are really backward. And so that is the defense comes up. That is happening. And this defensive attitude makes them not discuss openly about that this system needs to be changed, except in the few universities. And I think Assam, there is a student movement which took up this question. Then there are some other professors and one journalist in Shillong Times, that who is the editor of the Shillong Times. You can count them on fingers. How many people are there who are openly talking against the system?
You discussed briefly how the capitalist development devalued women. What is the connection there to witch branding? How did that come out of the development?
I interviewed about 171 total people from all these states. Maybe in total would be 20 men and rest of 151 would be the women. That is them. What I find that lot of cases, when go to the what are the factors that denounce them as witches, they are related to the question of land rights or property rights. So when women assert their right to own property or to have their share in the housing or in the agricultural land, they are denounced as witches. And they are denounced by the close relatives who would be the who would be next in line to succeed. So it would be the husband's brother's son, the nephew. The nephews are there though who would claim this property. So this greed for money, that at any cost you have to get some money, even at the kind of eliminating some people or killing some people. That is one thing that says the capitalist system. Second is this kind of modernity which comes as a part of the capitalist system has not really improved women's position. So that, I mean, in terms of improving position means that they are not in the decision making. They are still considered dependent on men, with the exception of Meghalaya. Where also they are not, decision making applies, but they are considered as the head of the household. So the head of the household is still men, decision making within the house, within the community, or overall in the regional council. They have the regional council, 8 states make a regional council also. All men are there. And woman is not even allowed to enter that place. So the capitalism which treats women as the housewife and men as the breadwinner, this is the basic kind of thing. Women don't have the father that of the economist or the capitalist economics which is there. It sees that men are the superior beings in terms of analysis, in terms of scientific knowledge, and women are just to do the brawn work. That is the doing agriculture, doing housework. So women's shaping of women in this kind of category, that is how the capitalism has affected them. Within home, outside home, and including leading to internalization of this role. Women have also started believing that they are not as as good a person or as intelligent as men are, or they are not as good managers as men are. This kind of internalization is very bad for the system. When you internalize or your inferiority, That means that is very difficult to change rather than somebody imposes on you. So it is being imposed, it is being internalized. And that is how I call it the development of patriarchal forces. But patriarchy has to have this component that how women are made as subordinates and who are the superordinates.
Yes. And one form that this internalization takes, or one aspect of it that you talk about, has to do with gender based violence and whether women, I know you analyzed some surveys about whether women believe that men are within their rights to discipline with violence. Is that something that's changed because of the development, or was that something that was present before development?
As I said earlier, and I find it that I do find its root in the cultural system that men are superior beings, but not in terms of very stark and very clear terms. Clarity and acceptance by women, total acceptance by women, with the exception of few, this has happened. So this is the part I call as an internalization, which is very dangerous. When the person tend to justify, this happens with the in dealing with the race question, dealing with the caste system. When a person thinks that, okay, I'm not as good as a Brahmin, I mean, a caste person would be, I'm not as good as a white person, or I'm not good as being a man, then probably this is the worst aspect that you can see. That means there is an enemy within. Realize that enemy within and to fight against that enemy you have to unlearn so much. There a lot of unlearning is required. And probably when you see others like this, then peer group kind of pressure, then you find that others are also like that. So women are kind of happening in this. But there is a silver lining in this. When I say majority of the people, a great majority of the women are like that, there are women who are questioning this, either either vocally or in action. In action also, they may not sit down and articulate this, but what is this is happening? Their migration outside that region and working in Delhi. And although they find Delhi as a kind of, they are not in the mainstream of society, they still look for their peer groups, still their friendship circles, but the social groups. But at the same time, they find themselves freer to have financial independence, have decide about their own life, not to marry, not to have children by certain age. These kind of pressures are over. And they also find little bit comfort in living because living in forest can be good in term, but when you have to do the infrastructure is not enough, then probably you find that it's a difficult terrain. So they find that this terrain is better uh, with few precautions. Delhi terrain is better than a terrain is Sikkim and terrain is there.
When you planned your research and then you began interviewing and collecting data, was there anything that surprised you, or did you find what you thought you were going to find?
Yes, lot of surprises were there. I first thing I went there with the idea that it will be a very modern society. I was initially reluctant to take it, that there won't be any kind of practice of witch hunts. But then when I learned, I have some friends in the universities and journalism and this circle, and they told me it is there. So I wanted to explore. Um, itself was a surprise when I came to know this practice. Second thing surprises me that there were, besides witch hunt, there were additional kind of, besides witch branding, I will say, there were additional factors that surprised me. For example, there is a system of tiger, that man becomes a tiger in the night, one man, and there is a circle of these tigers. So one village might have two, three tigers. They meet themselves in the night. They go and loot the villages, collect resources, and there is no No police report, nothing like that, because they are supposed to be the tigers. They are not. The tiger spirit. They call them tiger spirit. Tiger spirit has entered their body, so they behave like tigers. They will eat raw meat. They sometimes they will crave even for killing the human beings in some remote part. And there was what surprised me. There were also some tiger women. So I met a tiger woman and I asked her, "Ki, what do you think? What made you a tiger? Why did they call you a tiger woman?" And they said that when she was in the school, she could not focus. Her her attention was very short lived. And she would look at like this and sometime like this. Then you are not paying enough attention or you're distracted. Then probably you start looking around kind of thing, not focused on your eyes not stuck at the teacher. And they thought that because she roams around in the night as a tiger, so she is a tiger woman. She studied. She worked within the government. And when I met her, she's almost retiring age, that kind of, she was 58. Very articulate, very good looking woman, but at the same time, they called her a tiger woman. And before that, I was given a description that how a tiger man or a woman looks, that big eyes, rolling eyes, they can't see you straight in the eyes. So this was they are very sleepy during the day because they have not slept in the night. They are roaming around in the forest. So this was the myth that, and I said, how many tiger men would be in this village? And I was told by a retired police officer, but a very high ranked director general of the police, that that Indian police force in that state is full of these tigers. So they are considered as efficient, that you can track the criminals in the night who are part of this. So if you are a tiger man, you won't feel sleepy in the night. So this surprised me. Second thing that surprised me also was the question of how do you poison food by looking at that. So in Sikkim, for example, tiger men were there in Nagaland and also part in bit of other states also are joining. In Sikkim, there was a practice of Ning, Ning, Ning. And Ning is the food poisoning. But this food poisoning can be that you eat only in the safe restaurant. So you can get food poisoning by if you eat by anywhere, by any stranger. For example, I can eat some sweets and then I had to eat first myself and then pick up kind of thing. Then I would offer to others. So this was also surprises me that food is not. After this, of course, these young students, they became very friendly with me and they related that how they were warned by mothers that they could work with me but not take any offering. They told me that offering by me or eat in a restaurant with me, but they were eating later, but they shared this. So this widespread thing about food poisoning, not because the food can be polluted, but food can be poisoned. And if a person indulges in this a lot more, poisoning other person, then a black flag is put on that person's house. And lot of them are these women who are the food poisoners. They cook and they serve and they market kind of food after processing it. That came a big surprise to me. Third surprise came to me burying alive people. That is the history I've read about burning of women as witches in Europe, early modern Europe. But this was almost like that a woman would be driven to a dry well and then she would kind of pushed into that well, and on that they will put a lot of mud so that she's covered and cover her with that. And some women were also involved in this act. This is one act that surprised me very. This happened in Tripura. And 2 weeks before I was there, of course, then it matter was reported to the police, and the police came and they removed the dead body. And when I went to the police station, because this officer was there, and I wanted to see his reaction, and he said, "Well, this is part of their system. We have to have the penal measures, but they are not even punished for the murders in this case. Lot of the mob is there when they are done this, and that the mob is led by the close relatives. In this case, it was the husband's younger brother whose son was ill for 15 days fever and young child, he was 3-year old and he died. And as a result was that they thought that she has cast the spell. So she was pushed to the well. And after that, all the ritual ceremony was there. Even this woman who was killed like this, she has a 8-year-old son, and he was wearing a mourning dress, white and some kind of traditional dress. I was so amazed that, and everyone was talking coolly about that. That of course this has to be, it has to be done because she was a witch. If you don't kill her, then she would kill others. So this is for your own safety, you are killing them. So this logic also surprised me. It repeatedly surprised me, kind of thing, that even in this modern kind of society, these things are accepted so easily. So these surprises came to me, this thing. And then women also believe, why women won't believe? Women also would believe in this. When she was pushed to the kind of well, there were a couple of women in that, and there were about 8 men and 3 women. So that is the this kind of woman pushing another woman, and this is seeking the acceptability that you have to be part of that system. Otherwise, they think that if you are not participating, you might be sympathetic to the witch, and you might have some witch element in yourself. That's why you are protecting her. So this is part of the internalization I am talking about, but creating as a kind of pressure group, pressure within yourself, which you have internalized. One more surprise. Because I am from India and Delhi, so that is what the people from Delhi are always a suspect. They think you are part of the central government. And the government of India has controlled some areas, particularly Nagaland, with the kind of militant forces, because there has been a militancy going on. They want their own society, they want separation from India, that complex kind of phenomenon. So, so in this, I was allowed that, in this, I was told that you cannot go to the village because you are from Delhi. So I said, but I want to meet a tiger man, because the tiger man was there who was willing to talk. So he said, you can go there, they won't attack you, but they won't talk to you. They would make you, neither you can enter the village, you can be on the outskirts of the village. So this problem was solved by my friend who's in Naga and who teaches English in the Department of English in Nagaland University. And she said she would go and she will interview on my behalf. So that you cannot go to any village. That came as a surprise. These are some surprises.
Given how entrenched this witch hunting is in cultures and this skepticism towards outside influences, what kind of changes can happen to go against, to challenge the witch hunting and the harmful practices? How is change going to happen?
I think change is going to happen through rights movement of women in particular, focused attention, but people also, rights of the indigenous people as such, but within that, rights of the indigenous women with attention to that. That would be one thing, which has very limited efforts have been made. Right now, there are two forces that are working to change the system. One force is really make the law, but in this region there is no law against witch hunts, except in Assam, which is at the border, and Assam was second worst affected state, and also students took the movement. So these are some welcome signs. Besides Assam, there is no state that has the law because they thought this is a part of their indigeneity. Witch hunts is a part of their indigeneity. Once you say that it's part of indigeneity, then you don't change it. And for example, after so many years, maybe in the last 10 years, now the change is happening in India with regard to the caste system is very bad. Untouchability is so bad. But in rural situation, still it is being practiced. I mean, there is a law. If you call somebody untouchable, then you would be really, you can be taken to court or you can be punished for that. But this is the open kind of this change has happened that openly you will not denounce as a witch. But everybody would know about it. This is very strange kind of thing. There would be a kind of fact that she cast a spell, she says. But when that woman comes, they would try to shy away. They would try to not associate with her. And then she will know that probably they are treating me different. So that means that I'm in trouble. Now, this needs to be addressed. They're kind of through awareness raising, through government programs, through civil society programs. And civil society problems are so enormous. Civil society within this region has been struggling with their rights against the rest of Indians. Okay. But not yet come has to look at their own cultures. So this is the second kind of thing. I am finding it difficult to present this case, the witch study. Those people who are working in indigenous areas, they think it is something which furthers the idea or deepens the idea that they are backward people, backward in quote. So that's why they don't want to say that. But I strongly believe in feminist theory of women's rights. And this kind of brutal killing and much worse than subtle discrimination and other things. And this need to be stopped.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the feminist movement? What's happening right now with it?
Feminist movement in India, right? I think one of the things feminist movement are struggling for their rights on following factors. One is the whole question of land rights. I also work on the land rights. 76% of the agriculturalist women, those who cultivators and those who work on land, they are women. It is the official statistics I'm giving, not even data myth. But they are not recognized as landowners, and therefore they are not recognized as farmers. So whatever the farmers development program is there, only a landowner can be a farmer officially. But these women are landowners. So what you have the master and the worker in the same house. Men are the masters because they own land and housing, and women are the workers because they work on that. So it is not only housework, it is the work, agricultural work also is done by women. So agriculture work has become like household work, non recognition of that work. That is one struggle. Second point of struggle is the unpaid care work. There is a struggle that this need to be recognized as work. It's a global kind of situation. But in India also there is a lot of large movement about that unpaid care work is to be recognized as the work of the women. How it needs to be compensated, they need to be worked for. First, the recognition is needed because it takes a lot of work on the women. So they, the other day, a couple of days ago, there was a discussion in an institute on proposal. And I used the word that marriage and motherhood penalty. And they said, we can't say motherhood penalty. Hmm. This will, the funders won't like that. This is the industry won't if you call it the motherhood penalty. So I said, okay, call it implication. So this motherhood and marriage, they are still come with all the ills, with all the dowry murders and other things. They are still considered as the aim of women that the good woman has to get married, she has to produce children. In urban area, things are little different, but there is implicit kind of acceptance even in cities and in urban areas, but rural area is entrenched with that. So feminist movement is attacking that. Yeah. Third thing is political rights. So we have very little representation of women in the in the parliament, in state assemblies, and that is also being discussed. Why women are not there in politics? What should be done to include their voice there? We have made changes at the grassroots level, 33% compulsory representation of women. And of course, there are some problems. The men would go in women's place, particularly if a woman is not articulate and not this. So that is also being discussed. So these are some three economic cultures are in culture only the caste system is very highly questioned category. That is by women, by men. So the intersectionality of gender and caste, some people are working on that. Even patriarchy is seen as the Brahmanical patriarchy by some. That is only among the Brahmins has promoted. The Brahmins are the uppermost caste. I believe the patriarchy is much more widespread than only among Brahmins, but Brahmins were the originator. Purity, who talked of purity and pollution, let women get polluted during menstruation period, during childbirth, and all the so on and so forth. Feminist movement is quite vibrant in India. There, on the one hand, like same thing in Pakistan. When the oppression is there, then the reaction is also very strong. If you don't have the reaction is strong, then your voices are lost. Mm. And violence against women. My goodness. Violence against women has become very brutal. Earlier we read about rapes and other things. Now we read gang rapes and murders in the most kind of brutal form because they destroy the evidence also after that. So it is the rapes have become gang rapes and brutal murders of women in public places. Once in a while, you hear the cases made more prominent, but this goes on kind of thing. So when not only domestic violence, but it is the public places also are not safe. Transports, roads, they are not safe places also. So these are the four, five features on which women feminist movement in India is very strong. Of course, Government of India talks about a G20 women-led development. I'm I'm still debating what is women-led development. Woman president who is from indigenous areas, indigenous woman. So our prime minister is, we don't have American system where the president is everything. We have the prime minister, that system. But nevertheless, the president is the head of the state. So a woman is the head of the state. Delhi yesterday got elected chief minister of Delhi state is a woman. So these are the things that attempt is being made to have the tokenization of women in order to show that we are doing better. So India's number is very, very low in terms of the gender-based discrimination. So they are trying to improve their situation.
And before you go, could you tell us about the International Alliance to End Witch Hunts?
Oh, that about 3 years ago, I set up this international alliance to end witch hunts. Idea was that how to spread this knowledge about the witch question and do you enlarge kind of thing. So we have meeting about 4 times a year. Initially, it was twice a year, where we invite people from Pacific, from Africa in particular, because Africa it is quite widespread, and also some Europeans. And from the US, you are there, and these are the some networks, that kind of thing. And there are 15 members who are the core group, people with whom initially the meeting was set up. Now the membership, which is free kind of thing, it is there about 200 people. So we have this meeting regularly and we discuss not only a question of India, we also discuss the what has happened in Africa, what happens early modern Europe. So looking at the history also. Sometime I would like, of course, you and Josh also to talk about US situation. That would be really good. I after I come back this time it is a bit delayed. So I was thinking after this commission on the status of women in New York meeting, and then we come back and what happened there and how the which question is seen or not seen. It is in Europe and North America, with the exception people like you, it is seen as if it is a part of the ancient system and it's disappeared. And so there is a limited interest except among some scholars. But Asia and more so in Africa, there is a lot of now research all of a sudden that is happening in the last 5 years. Tanzania, Ghana, South Africa. I mean, there are studies are coming on the this question. And Pacific also is bad, but not so many studies on Pacific as you find in Africa. In Asia also some people are interested, but in India in particular, but very limited. I don't see any other country of Asia that has addressed this issue, except in China, where soon after liberation, they have outlawed the witch question and they have made a cluster of the villages because they were not accepted in the society and there was violence. So there is outcasting of these people, but in the government jobs, there are no kind of discrimination, but outside they are called as the witch village.
We're so glad you joined us for today's important episode with Dr. Govind Kelkar. Sarah, do you have any announcements this week?
Yes, I do. Listeners, you can help by signing the petition for the accused witches of Maryland. To show your support for their exoneration, please go to change.org/MD Witch Trials. Change.org/MD Witch Trials.
Anything else we need to cover?
Yes. Listeners, we have an important fundraiser. This June, we want to go to the Magic and Witchcraft Conference, and while we are there, we've been invited to create a podcast episode in historic York, England. But we need your help to get there. You can donate at the link in the show notes.
Thank you so much. Have a great today and a beautiful tomorrow.